building out of the Netflix API. How much code did it take in order to enable this?
Doug, it was no code.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So what we have is the .NET runtime that we have for OData understands how to take that expression, those conventions, and automatically execute those against your model or your underlying database. And so, Jonathan, what I'd love to be able to do is find out what the count of this is as well.
Okay, so all we can do there is simply use another convention in OData called $count.
And what this does is it allows you to find out the number of results that are in the results set. And so we've got an entire expression language that is fully available directly inside of the URL that you can use without writing any code, and your developers can use without any code to issue arbitrary expressions against your web APIs. So Jonathan, here's a great window of creativity. Can we go back to the service document, and let's go a little crazy and show what we can really do with a query here.
Yeah, so I mean, in addition to looking at this as just catalog titles, you see we have a lot of other entity sets that we can take advantage of. So for instance, I'm a big fan of Japanese film. So what would be interesting is if we could go in this from languages and say, Doug, you know what, I want to get the language that's equal to Japanese, and within that, any catalog title that is associated with that language. Now, I also want to be able to watch the movie instantly, so what I can do is do a filter saying, only give me back titles that are instantly available right now in the Japanese language.
Great. And this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of expressions. And again, Jonathan had to write no code whatsoever, and we find Japanese films that are instantly available in the Netflix catalog, and you can click the link to start watching those today. So Jonathan, one of the really cool things about this, I just noticed it returns Sin the movie. That's pretty apropos for the...
It is, yeah.
So the other thing that I talked about in terms of things that people often want on top of web APIs is the ability to get a nice JSON encoding. So how simple is it in order to get JSON out of this web API?
Well, once again, Doug, we have another query option in OData, which you can simply specify that we want the format to be JSON.
Great. For those of you that are REST heads, we do support content nego, so you can do accept type and then it will return the right thing. But this is a nice convention that you can leverage directly inside of an HTML page. And in order to show that, Jonathan, could we just bring up Notepad, my favorite development tool?
The Real Man's Developer Tool.
Real Man's Development Tool. And so what we see here is we have a very simple HTML page. It's going to use some of the JavaScript and jQuery stuff that you just saw a few moments ago. And all Jonathan is going to do is go in and copy and paste that URL in. I believe that's what you're going to do.
That is what I'm going to do.
And copy and paste that in. You need to add a callback function if we can do that. For those of you that are familiar with what we're doing, we need to do JSON-P because we're doing a cross-domain call.
That's right.
Go ahead and hit save, and let's show. Did you hit save?
I did.
Okay, fantastic. Look at that. So what you see there is almost no lines of code in order to go talk directly. There we go. There's applause. The beauty of this is you can just execute arbitrary expressions against that data set and start to bind it with almost no work whatsoever. So if you can dream of a query, you can start to execute that directly against the Netflix API. So the third thing I talked about in terms of the things that people often need inside of web APIs is rich metadata. And so Jonathan, can we go back and look at the XML? And so when we do that, we're going to drill in and show you some of the information that's in the movie. And if Jonathan zooms in, you'll notice something very interesting, particularly about release year. And what you see is you see it says 1999, great year, loved it. And what you see there is also an attribute that tells us what the type is, and that's inside the instance document. So if you're a client, you can go in and understand what type that is and not just assume it's a string. Furthermore, OData has a mechanism by which you can ask the service all the data that it returns, or the type of data that it returns. In order to do that, Jonathan's going to utilize an option called $metadata. And when he does that, what you see is a document that gets returned that tells you every single type that is going to be returned by that service. So you see here, this is the catalog title. You see synopsis, it's a string. You see runtime is int32. And you see date modified is a date time. Now, where this becomes really great is I can take this information in a tool like Visual Studio 2010 and create a wonderful programming experience directly against that. So Jonathan, let's go ahead and open up VS 2010. And what we see here is a very simple project. It's a Silverlight project. Jonathan's just set up a data grid. Can we please go in and add a reference to that service? So this is the standard add service reference dialog. What we've done is we've added OData support directly into this. So you can go and point at any OData service, and we will generate for you, based on that $metadata, strongly typed C# or VB classes, or anything with a code DOM rather. And what you can do is start to program against that directly. So Jonathan has added the reference, but there's another thing that we can show here that's pretty interesting. Jonathan, if you will show off the diagram view that we have. So we have an OData visualizer extension that you can download today that allows you to go up and look at any service in a graphical way and understand how an OData service is structured, the relationships, the scalar values, etc. So this means you don't have to go process that XML. You don't have to go look at your C# classes that got generated. You can look at this in a graphical way. And so what Jonathan's going to do now is we're going to write some code against it. And how we're going to do that is Jonathan is just going to go into the page load function, and he's going to create an instance of the generated proxy that we have and specify the URL of the Netflix catalog that we were just using. And once he's done that, he's going to issue a query. And the way he's going to issue a query is using the mechanism inside of the .NET framework that we all know and love in order to write queries, which is LINQ. And the beauty of what we've done with our OData library is we have a translator that will take a LINQ expression and rewrite that expression to that same interoperable URL syntax you just saw. And what that does is it gives you a fantastic programming environment, LINQ, inside of .NET, against all those services that implement that expression language directly in an interoperable way. And so what Jonathan's going to do now is he's going to utilize something that we have called the data service collection. And this is a very simple way in order to take care of asynchronous calls, two-way data binding, and marshalling back to the UI thread. And all Jonathan's doing here is he's just specifying that collection, and then he's telling the collection to load async with that query itself. You need an A in front of it?
I do.
Great. Let's go ahead and F5, and this should work and show us magic.
It's complaining because we're using a cross-domain query.
Got it. And so what we see there is, Jonathan, your favorite film, or your favorite TV show?
Season 3 of Gossip Girl is awesome, Doug.
I thought you were a Vampire Diaries.
No, that's too mainstream.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. So what you see there is you've seen three different things. You've seen us show query, arbitrary expressions inside of the web API, consistent JSON encoding of the Atom documents, and 3 rich metadata that you can leverage in development tools like Visual Studio. The next thing that I talked about was you really want to be able to support all those different devices. You'd like to be able to say, hey, look, I want to support all those different mainstream devices with my web API, but boy, I sure as heck don't want to write a bunch of proxies and client SDKs in order to talk to those things. So what we've been doing is investing in client libraries that understand OData on a variety of different platforms, not just Microsoft. And so what Jonathan is going to show off here, if we can switch to the camera, is a Palm Pre device. And we are going to show OData, our OData client, running on the Palm Pre. So Jonathan, could you please select the Netflix catalog? So Jonathan will click that. And when he does it, we were having some issues with the network, but it does work. You can see this is the exact same Atom service document you saw a moment ago. Jonathan, click on catalog titles, please, or you click the... And we'll see whether or not it actually comes back. I think we're sharing the same network with everyone else. And what this is going to do is issue a GET query, go and retrieve the results, and then show them in the Palm Pre device. The key takeaway I want to have here is this is not just a .NET thing. This is fully available, and we have clients that run on a variety of different devices that we are providing in a first-class way. And in fact, Jonathan, what we'll do is we'll switch back over the slides because we're having a network issue. One of the things that I'm very, very happy to announce today is that we have support for the iPhone directly for OData. So what you can do now is you're seeing a screenshot of this. This is an Xcode. In fact, this is on my very own Macintosh. And this is a iPhone client that is talking directly to the Netflix API. This is available today that you can download and start to program against the Netflix API directly inside of Objective-C and any OData service that's provided out there for you. Great. We'll take applause for that. So I want to talk to you about how serious and committed we are to the Open Data Protocol. We are so serious about it that you'll see 2 very important products on the screen right now. SharePoint.